What's up, everyone? Sean Count Blackreath here today doing a discussion video. I'm going to get two plugs out of the way real quick. I'm going to plug my Patreon if you want to be a part of it. Link will be down below. I have a bunch of shit you can check out, stuff like that. I have another review coming that's based off of a Patreon poll and a review based off a request. So if you want to get in on that, link will be down below. And also, 4 days left to pick up the latest Descendant clothing design, Friedrich Nietzsche. This one, if you want it, pick it up. Then they're heading out to print. Now, the second, and that's it for the plugs. What the fuck am I saying? Now, this is a video I've been thinking about making for a bit, and I finally decided to do it just because, why not? I'm just going to give my thoughts on the vinyl resurgence and what's good and bad about it. Now, some people, you may have clicked on this video just to say you don't give a fuck. Cool. And you may say, who the fuck are you? I'm really nobody. So I'm going to get all that out of the way before you fuckers go down there and comment just, who are you? You're just an irrelevant fucking neckbeard virgin faggot piece of shit. Fucking kill yourself, you little fucking queer. I was listening to metal before you were even born. You're still in your daddy's nuts and I was jerking off fucking Kronos. Cool. And in case you couldn't tell, this is going to be specifically about metal and the vinyl resurgence overall, but I'm going to be speaking about metal a bit more specifically with certain things, so just keep that in mind if you're not really a metal guy and you clicked on it. Now, when it comes to the vinyl resurgence, I'm going to get the positives out of the way, and the main number one positive, in my opinion, is the fact that it's getting people to buy physical music and supporting artists. If you want to buy digital, that's cool, but I am a fan of the physical format. I love vinyl, that's my favorite format, but I love CDs and cassettes. To me, it's awesome. I love any physical media for music consumption. Why? Because you get something for your money. It's nice. You have all the lyrics and shit like that. You can look at the artwork better, especially on vinyl. You have a 12 by 12 piece of art essentially in front of you, and that's awesome. And I'm glad people see the value in that. And anything that keeps people not only supporting bands, but keeping the physical medium alive, I am all for that. I think it's a wonderful thing. And in fact, I kind of hope that the resurgence keeps going a bit if they change a few things. I'll get to that in a bit. And another thing that's nice too is you can get accessories for vinyl pretty much anywhere now. I went to FYE and I picked up a anti-static brush, which I definitely needed. And it's nice that I can just go down to FYE and get one of these. Or even just get some of these clear sleeves for my records. That's very handy. I like that you can get accessories everywhere. And I like that you can get records everywhere. Good example is I got this at Barnes & Noble, Black Sabbath Volume 4. I have an original copy, but it was so beaten I couldn't even listen to it. That was my dad's. And I want to get myself a copy. And yeah, I was able to pick up a copy of this a few months back at Barnes & Noble. And you can get vinyl pretty much at any major retailer, save like Walmart and like Target and shit like that. Then again, I think there was a Justin Timberlake vinyl I saw there, which was fucking weird. But I think it's great that you can pick up all this stuff much easier than you could years ago. I have been collecting vinyl since I was 15, and I'm 26 now, going to be 27 in January. So for about a little over 10 years, I've been buying records. Sure, I may have been slacking for a few years up until recent times when I actually started making money and shit like that. But I have noticed some changes, but it's nice that I can actually go out and find this stuff pretty much at any store versus having to order it online like I used to have to, especially with the clear sleeves. I couldn't find them anywhere, and some record stores didn't even carry them, and there wasn't that many record stores in my area. Another awesome thing about the vinyl resurgence is people are now starting to shop not just at these big retailers like Barnes & Noble, FYE, Best Buy, etc., where you can buy vinyl, but people are now checking out small mom and pop shops, which is absolutely great, and I love that because those stores tend to be better than the bigger ones. You can find more harder to find items there. I found a lot of stuff at local record stores that I never thought I would find in a record store. And I think that's sick. And people going in constantly at buying records, it's great because they're helping out local business. The money stays in the area. They're keeping the dreams of the people that are running the store alive because they're just as passionate about it. And I think it's awesome with all that. And I think Record Store Day, to an extent, is a great thing in the aspect that it gets people to go out to these mom and pop shops and give them some business. So I think there are some very good benefits to it. And also the fact that you can get almost any record nowadays on vinyl, which I think is really cool. Because there are a lot of records, sure there are some that haven't been repressed, I'll say that, but it's nice that I don't have to drop $500 for Transylvanian Hunger, or I think it's now over $1,000. I haven't bothered to check the prices of the OGs, but I don't have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars now to get a record because they're reprinted. And to me, I care about the music. So a reprint, that's fine by me. As long as I have the music and I can listen to it, that's cool. Another absolutely great thing about the vinyl resurgence, and I feel like it's a point a lot of people overlook, is the fact that vinyl kind of forces you to listen to the whole album. For the last, going on to close to 20 years since since iTunes and downloading became really popular, I would say close to 20 years. I could be off on that estimate. I want to say, yeah, close to 20 years. We'll say that. We use 2000 as like a benchmark for that. A lot of people have kind of skipped over a lot of tracks on albums. The art of listening, not even art, the practice of listening to an album from front to back has been lost for the most part. People skip around on albums. A lot of people, they just download singles that they hear off the radio or whatever, especially in mainstream music. There's some people that, just don't give a shit about listening to a whole album. But when people start to get into vinyl, they're forced to sit down and listen to the album from front to back. And to me, that's awesome because the artist doesn't write an album with the intention of you to listen to one song. They want you to listen to the whole thing. And usually in metal, and even outside of metal, in pretty much every genre, the intent of an album isn't to be a collection of songs. The point is for it to be a standalone piece of art, a cohesive piece of art that is meant for you to listen to from front to back and take you on a specific journey or explain a story or tell a message or whatever. And I feel like vinyl is forcing people to sit down and listen to it. Sure, you can move the needle around, but not a lot of people do that. A lot of people just throw the record on, drop the needle, let it play through, flip it over, drop it, let it go through. That's great. And I love that because people are truly experiencing music that way versus just skipping around on their iPod or iPhone. Nobody uses an iPod anymore. Who the fuck am I? Skip around on their phone. You know what I mean? It's nice that people are now listening to albums from beginning to end. But with all this positive stuff, there are some negatives. And I think there are some pretty strong negatives. And I feel like this resurgence is killing itself. A great example of how the vinyl resurgence is killing itself is due to the fact that this is kind of something that's out of the control to an extent, but it's also something that could be changed if people were actually willing to invest into it, which is there's a strong lack of pressing plants. So vinyl pressing takes forever, and it's extremely expensive to print. Trust me, I know. With a release I'm working on for my record label, it's going to cost me close to 10 grand to print with how I'm doing it. And it sucks, which means that in order for the label to make their money back minimum, they can't just have a cheap $15 LP to put out. It's very rare you find that. Most are almost $20, and for a double LP between $20 to $25, some cases up to $30 for a double LP set. That sucks because a lot of people don't want to spend that kind of money. And I understand lack of pressing plants, the time restraints, and the fact that these pressing plants can justify the charge of, let's say, for 500 records, about $5,000, I can definitely understand why they can justify that, because it's a lot of work for them. But at the same time, with this lack of pressing plants, people get frustrated, and the label, in order to make their money back and to even put some money back in their pocket through all the hard work they put into not just getting it sent off to press, which in itself is a nightmare with the paperwork, with just not that, but also when you get them, having to check all of them, make sure they're not damaged, packing each one up properly and shit like that. In order to make a profit off it, it's difficult, especially with the prices of the pressings. So in that aspect, and as I said, it comes down to the fact there are not that many pressing plants in the world. Excuse me, my voice is cracking. Since there's not that many pressing plants, the price is just a little outrageous, because it's like, who the fuck else are you going to go to? And some pressing plants are very shoddy. And with that, a lot of people will go to the cheaper plants because, as I said, it's very expensive. So why wouldn't you want to try to get, the best bang for your buck when it comes to printing a record? But with that, there comes a loss of quality. And with that quality, it can be a super flimsy jacket. Some records that have surface noise on it, even if you have it perfectly clean when you play it for the first time. Some of them come warped. Some of them have... I had one that had dead wax, like about this wide on one end of the record, on the outside. And then on the other side, there was absolutely no dead wax. Center labels all messed up. And these labels, they won't even check for it, some of them. They'll just say, well, it's a vinyl pressing, we'll make some money, and throw it out there with little to no concern of the quality. And that is where I feel like the Resurgence is killing itself. Straight up. I feel like it's killing itself because of lack of quality control in some areas. Just because people want to put out anything on vinyl and make a quick buck off it, and they'll go the cheapest way they possibly can. Another part of the downfall of it is the fact that some of these labels, they don't even have the idea in their head of pricing their shit reasonably. A good example is the Pink Floyd reissues. I have an original copy of The Wall here. If anybody knows the story of this, please explain it to me, because this is kind of an interesting thing. Just a quick side note. My parents bought this when it came out. When my parents moved in together, my mom bought a copy and my dad did. My dad's copy isn't like this, and my dad's copy is unplayable. My mom's never got any played, and this is the one that I have. So this is the front of the cover. This is just a quick side tangent. The gatefold is right side up, but on the back, the piece of paper that says Pink Floyd The Wall is upside down and on the back cover. I don't know. If any of you know the story behind that or know what pressing this is, because even on Discogs I couldn't really find any information, let me know. Anyways, this album, you can find this used in most record stores for probably $10. It's not that hard to find. Everybody has a copy of The Wall. Everybody has a copy of Dark Side of the Moon. The repressings of them, holy shit. $50 for the repress of it. Why? That makes no sense. And I've seen this time and time again with multiple albums, where albums will cost upwards of $30 or more because the label says, hey, vinyl's back and people will be willing to pay this so they can have this on their shelf. And there's nothing special about any of these reissues that people do. They just take a remaster most of the time and slap it on vinyl and say, here you go. Or they'll use a CD master. And if you don't know much about vinyl, using a CD master for a vinyl is a no-no. You end up losing a lot of dynamics that way. It just sounds like ass. There's a lot of distortion. There's not much clarity. There's no room for the instruments to breathe and get the full dynamics of it. That sucks when you pay $50 for a reissue. It just sounds like garbage. And I think that's where, part of where the Resurgence is going to end up killing itself. And that's also due to the fact that fans of these bands will gladly fork out $50 for it. And that's kind of disappointing. So in a way, not only are greedy labels kind of responsible for what's going to be the decline and downfall of vinyl with this huge resurgence, the fans are also partially responsible because they're willing to do this. And it won't be long until a copy of like Dark Side of the Moon costs $100 for a reissue that was done with a CD master. And these other little qualms and gripes I have when it comes to the vinyl resurgence leads down more to the people that hopped on the vinyl train. And part of it is shitty turntables that people will use, because it's going to have an effect later on. Well, it's very easy to find Crosley and some of the other cheaper turntables you can get at FYE. Audio-Technica LP60, I think that's an alright one. The Sony USB turntable, I had that one when I started off getting into vinyl, and it works good, but it's nothing that you really want to stick with. But people will get these super cheap Crosleys and these very piss poor quality turntables, and they're just ruining their records. It's awful what these turntables do to it. There's no anti-skate, there's no counterweight, there's absolutely nothing that can help save your record from getting wrecked just from playing it. You need a heavy turntable, heavy platter. You need all of that in order for your record to play properly and for it to continue to play properly for years to come. And this is where it starts to suck, in my opinion, which is once when this vinyl resurgence is over and all the people that were only in it for the cool factor to sell their records, there's going to be a ton of records that are borderline unplayable because of these dipshits playing through these shitty turntables. Now, some of it could be ignorance that people just don't know the difference between a Crosley and like a Technics or a U-turn. And I can understand that. Being new to something you don't know, you get excited, you buy something that's like, well, hey, this has speakers in it. I don't need to buy a preamp. I don't need to get a whole new stereo setup. I can see the appeal on the surface. But you have to think in terms of what's going to happen to your records in the long run. And the people that were only in it because of the cool factor, the hipsters, I'm not a big fan of that term, those people are going to be selling off their records and they're going to be completely destroyed. And you're going to be going to a record store later on, in probably 10 years, you'll find a record, but you're going to be kind of scared and a little iffy about it when you see it sitting there. Because you will have that thought in the back of your mind, was this played on a Crosley or was this played on a good turntable? Because that will make a difference. It'll just destroy the grooves and it's going to sound like shit if it's even playable. And I think that's one of the downsides too of this vinyl resurgence is shitty equipment and the aftermath of what that shitty equipment will do. Another thing that kind of annoys me more with the resurgence as a whole and the attitude it's brought up with people, which is that vinyl is somehow a form of social currency, and just the idea that it's currency in general. I've always had the mindset when it comes to vinyl, like, yeah, it's the coolest format in my opinion with certain genres. It just sounds better. Like, let's be real. Yes, it's all subjective, and some people will say a CD does sound better. And depending on what it is, you are 100% correct. To me, I do like the warmth, which I do understand is distortion caused by the needle running across the grooves, or the stylus, before the fucking nerds jump down my throat for calling a stylus a needle. I understand that it's just the distortion, it provides this warmer sound. I do like that, personally, and I do like the fact that, for example, with like, just because I have this here, Volume 4, I can look at this album cover and, you know, go through the lyrics and read all the shit inside, look at the pictures. I like that, versus, you know, holding the CD or whatever. I get that vinyl is just nicer to have overall. Sure, it's a pain in the ass to maintain, but I get it. But I don't see it as the be-all, end-all. Like, the people that refuse, that say they support physical media and they support, music and shit, but they won't buy the album unless they can get it on vinyl. For me, I don't really care that much. Yeah, there's some albums that I would much rather have on vinyl than CD, but if I can't get my hands on the vinyl, the CD will work. Because I buy my shit, at the very least, to listen to it. Not to say, I collect vinyl and check out all the vinyl I have on my shelf. I'm so cool and so much better than you because I collect vinyl. I don't really give a shit, and I feel like that's kind of an attitude. It's almost became, vinyl collecting is like a dick measuring contest. Am I kind of guilty to an extent of this? Fuck yeah, I am. It's fun to post pictures of your records on Instagram. That's pretty much all I really do. And yeah, my channel is kind of centered around showing records. And yeah, it's fun to show it off, but I feel like it's been taken to this new level of people are just like, vinyl is the only format that fucking matters, and it sounds the best. And it's like, dude, you're playing your shit through a shitty turntable, through a shitty set of speakers. It doesn't sound better. And what's even worse is the black metal guys that listen to shit that is so raw, it sounds like it was recorded with a fucking 4-track under a garbage can with a standard Shure SM58 vocal microphone in the trash can with the recorder, and the band's playing in another room. Like, that type of raw black metal, people say, oh, vinyl sounds so much better, and then they proceed to play that through a shitty turntable. It's like, dude, you're better off getting the CD because it will sound just a little bit better. It'll be more clear. You don't know what the dynamics are because you're playing through garbage. And it's those type of attitudes that just rub me the wrong way. And I'm sure someone's going to say I'm being an asshole, and I kind of am. I'll admit it. And if that's what you want to do and you want to play your records like that and you want to listen to your shit like that, keep on doing it. Knock yourself out. Don't let me stop you. I don't want you to stop. But it's just that sort of attitude that kind of bothers me. And another gripe I have, and it kind of goes back with the label thing, which is a lot of this marketing that labels will do. Like, a good example is Earache with a full dynamic range. They'll plaster all over, like when they did the Bolt Thrower reissues or Morbid Angel and shit like that, and tuned their FDR full dynamic range. It's like, if you use an original master tape, that's what you're going to get, the full dynamic range. Pretty much any record that utilizes an original master or is remastered to the point where it's given more breathing room, like a lot of records that were recorded in the 90s or in like 2000s, specifically 2000s, were brick-walled, and there's no dynamics, there's no breathing room. Brick-walling has its place for certain things, definitely, and compression definitely has its place in a lot of things, but when it comes to vinyl, you need to remaster it. If it's remastered, you're going to get the full dynamic range. So stupid little marketing gimmicks like that, where they will charge $3 to $5 more for a record just because it has a full dynamic range, I think is a load of shit, and it's honestly kind of dishonest because it makes it sound like that their pressings are better than other ones, which isn't necessarily true. And it also goes back as well to labels doing cash grabs and shit like that, with labels focusing more on the packaging than the actual quality of the record and like the sound of it. I don't want to name any labels and shit like that, because there are definitely some fucking great labels that do this from time to time, and I don't want to put them on blast or anything like that. So I'm just going to say, like, I think it's very unnecessary for a label to put out a record with this super fancy packaging with, like, embossed jacket that's case wrapped in hot foil print and shit like that, and you get this massive booklet, and it's on, like, a glow-in-the-dark vinyl. And while that's all fine and dandy, glow-in-the-dark vinyl sounds like ass. It does. And same thing for clear vinyl. Clear vinyl, I was told specifically by Pirates Press, which in my opinion, is the best pressing plant, period, when it comes to vinyl. They're like the only one I fully trust 100%, the only one that I'll be going through for Celestial Oak. They told me straight up that clear vinyl doesn't sound that good. It's just because of the type of plastic that's used for the creation of the record. So these labels will be talking about how great the pressing sounds. They do a super elaborate packaging, but then they just press it on a really bad type of vinyl. And also, there's a little bit of dishonesty as well when it comes to people talking about, well, it's taken from the original master, so it's going to sound just like a record from back then, like the first press. Well, back then, for the most part, a lot of vinyl was virgin vinyl, which means pellets that weren't used before. They were just brand new, fresh plastic pellets that they then melted down and formed into the record. Whereas nowadays, it's very hard to find a true virgin vinyl record unless it's like clearly stated on the jacket that it was on the hype sticker. For the most part, it's all recycled vinyl, and while I think that's great that people are recycling it, it does deteriorate a bit. Let's be completely real, it does deteriorate a bit. And I feel like there's a bit of dishonesty with that, and that definitely bothers me. And going back to labels, once again, doing cash grabs and shit like that, and doing stuff that's completely unnecessary, yes, to an extent, it does make sense to have double vinyl, and especially 45 RPM mastered records that are on 2 LPs. They tend to sound better because the grooves have more room to breathe. The least amount of tracks per record, the better it's going to sound, just because it has more room to breathe. The grooves aren't being smushed into each other, shit like that. I completely get that. But there are some albums where it's so unnecessary to make a double LP of. A good example of this, and I will say it full on, is the Emperor box set that was put out by Blood Music. There was no real reason for all of those albums to become double LPs, because In the Nightside Eclipse sounded perfectly fine as a single LP. Shit like that bothers me. It just feels like a cash grab, and it's taking advantage of the buyer. But also at the same time, if the buyer wants to do that, keep on doing it. Then that's fine by me. To me, I just think it's dumb, and I will buy some of those LP reissues. I will be honest, I will. Not that Emperor box set. Fucking, I'm not going to drop over $1,000 for degradable media. But I just feel like shit like that is kind of shady, kind of unnecessary, and it's just going to end up killing off the vinyl resurgence in the long run, because people at some point are going to look at these prices and say, dude, fuck this. Now that I have all that off my chest, I didn't take any notes or anything. This was just all off the top of my head. I don't think I have anything more to add to this conversation. If you guys do, let me know. Make a video response. Comment down below your thoughts on this. I'm curious to hear what you all have to say. That's really about it. Overall, I feel like the positive in many aspects outweighs the negative, but I feel like the negative in the long run is going to kill it off. I just really hope that in a way the vinyl resurgence doesn't stop and it kind of hits a certain point where it just stays as status quo, because I hope vinyl pressings don't shoot up in price, because I don't want the demand to get higher, because I do understand that it will end up costing more in the long run. But as long as people are buying music, supporting the artist, and listening to albums from front to back, I think that's absolutely awesome, and I fully support it. So, with that said, go out, buy a record, get a CD, do something, listen to the album from front to back, and just support the artist. That's really the biggest thing, is support the artist and the labels that help make it happen. And, yeah, I'm just rambling now, so that's it. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Make a video response, whatever. If you want to become a patron, link will be down in the description below, as well as the pre-order for the shirts and my CDs that I pressed about 2 years ago. I only have like probably 30 copies left. So if you want one, grab one. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And I'll see you in the next